The cat distribution system has officially entered its Shonen era, because in Black Torch, Jiro Azuma does not bring home a normal stray. He brings home an injured black cat named Rago, and Rago just happens to be a legendary mononoke with enough enemies to turn one good deed into a supernatural disaster. Across the first 4 episodes, that meeting grows from a simple rescue into a partnership, a government problem, and eventually the foundation of an entire team. So, let's go through episodes 1 through 4 in order and see how Black Torch builds its characters, where its pacing works, and where it tries to do a little too much at once. Full spoilers ahead. Episode 1 starts by showing us what kind of person Jiro is before any of the supernatural power arrives. He has been trained by his grandfather, he is more capable in a fight than an ordinary high schooler, and he can communicate with animals. But the important part is that the animals already know him. Helping them is not a new responsibility created by the plot, it is part of his normal life. That is why finding an injured black cat in the woods immediately tells us more about Jiro than any speech could. He does not know where the cat came from or what attacked him. He just sees something hurt and decides to help. Jiro brings the cat home, cleans and bandages his wounds, and gives him a safe place to recover. The cat is Rago, the mononoke known as the Black Star of Doom. The key detail is that Jiro protects him before knowing any of that. There is no promise of power and no secret reward. The relationship begins with compassion. When another mononoke tracks Rago down, Jiro is suddenly fighting something completely outside his experience. He cannot overpower it, and every attempt to protect Rago makes the situation worse for him. But Jiro never considers abandoning the cat. He keeps fighting until the mononoke leaves him fatally wounded. That is when Rago makes his own decision. Instead of using Jiro as a disposable host, he gives up his separate body and merges with him to keep him alive. Jiro protects Rago when Rago appears helpless. Rago protects Jiro when Jiro actually becomes helpless. That exchange is what makes their bond work. Ichika arrives and sees exactly what the Bureau fears most: a reckless teenager with an ancient monster living inside him, because apparently every government agency has seen enough shonen to know how this usually goes. Episode 1 moves extremely quickly, but it succeeds because Jiro and Rago save each other before either one knows what their partnership will cost. Episode 2 begins with Jiro waking inside a Bureau hospital. The people around him are willing to explain what happened, but they are not willing to treat him like he is free. Rago is now fused with his body. The Bureau considers that fusion dangerous, and Jiro is being watched until they decide what to do with him. They call it protective custody. It looks a lot more like regular custody with better lighting. Jiro responds to that disagreement in the most Jiro way possible. He asks nearby birds to help distract the guards and escapes through a window. He goes home expecting to warn his grandfather, only to learn that Grandpa already knows about Mononoke and has history with the Bureau. Grandpa has enough experience to know how dangerous Rago could become, and he is willing to stop that danger even if it means attacking Jiro. Jiro initially refuses to rely on Rago. He wants to prove that he can handle the situation with his own strength, and Grandpa punishes that pride every time Jiro gets back up. The fight forces Jiro to recognize something he has been avoiding. Trusting Rago does not automatically mean losing himself, so Jiro asks for help. Rago answers without trying to take control. Their power becomes something they use together, instead of something Jiro is simply carrying. That is the real step forward in Episode 2. The fusion happened in Episode 1, but the partnership begins here because Jiro consciously chooses it. Considering Rago's title is the Black Star of Doom, this is not the easiest adoption pitch Jiro could have brought home. Episode 3 moves Jiro from his home into Bureau custody again, this time inside a transport van with spectral restraints around his wrists. Ichika is responsible for bringing him to headquarters, but she still sees Rago as a threat first and a person second. Before they arrive, the van is attacked by Mononoke. Ichika armors herself and fights outside while Jiro and Rago remain restrained in the back. The action is bigger here, but the fight is really about whether Ichika can trust the person she is transporting. The episode shows why that decision is difficult for her. A Mononoke killed her father, and that loss shapes the way she sees every creature like Rago. Her fear is understandable, but Jiro keeps giving her evidence that he is not the disaster she expects. Even while restrained, he is focused on helping. And Rago keeps protecting Jiro instead of trying to erase him. When Ichika can no longer handle the attackers alone, she has to decide whether holding onto that fear is more important than accepting the reality in front of her. She releases Jiro. Jiro breaks through the remaining restraints, joins the fight, and proves that he and Rago can use their power without losing control. More importantly, Ichika changes her judgment because of what she witnesses. She does not suddenly trust every mononoke. She chooses to trust Jiro and Rago specifically. That is the strongest character moment in these 4 episodes because it changes the relationship on both sides. Jiro earns freedom to act, while Ichika begins moving from jailer to teammate. Once they reach headquarters, the series reveals its larger structure. Black Torch, a new task force centered on Jiro and Rago. The new group brings in Hana's energy and Reiji's discipline. Reiji immediately dislikes Jiro's attitude. Jiro immediately refuses to be intimidated, and their first real conversation naturally ends with a challenge to fight. Episode 4 follows the challenge directly with Jiro and Reiji facing each other in an aptitude test. Reiji is controlled, technical, and precise. Jiro fights through instinct, stubbornness, and an impressive refusal to remain on the ground. Reiji controls much of the match, but Jiro keeps adapting and keeps pushing forward. The fight ends in a draw, which is the right outcome for both characters. Jiro does not suddenly become the better fighter, and Reiji does not get to dismiss him as an undisciplined amateur. They both leave the match with a reason to take the other seriously. Then Jiro shakes Reiji's soda before handing it to him. It is petty, completely unnecessary, and probably the first moment their hostility starts becoming friendship. The second half of the episode sends the newly formed Black Torch team to a bureau shrine built over an underground sealing site. The mission expands the world beyond attacking Mononoke. The bureau is also studying, containing, and sealing them away. That raises a more interesting question about how much of the organization is protection and how much is control. Rago clearly recognizes more about the location than he wants to explain, but the episode only begins opening that history before Koga appears. Koga walks into the confrontation wearing a cat-eared hoodie and carrying snacks, as if collecting the legendary Black Star of Doom is one more errand on his way home. His relaxed attitude is what makes him threatening. He is standing in front of Jiro, Reiji, and Rago without acting like any of them can stop him. Episode 4 has 2 strong ideas competing for time. The duel gives Jiro and Reiji a fun rivalry, while the shrine introduces Rago's past and a larger enemy. But the fight runs long enough that the mission ends almost as soon as its biggest questions appear. The cliffhanger is effective. It also makes the shrine section feel like the opening of Episode 5 attached to the end of Episode 4. After 4 episodes, Black Torch is at its best when its action changes a relationship. Jiro and Rago become partners by saving each other. Jiro learns to ask Rago for help. Ichika allows evidence to challenge her fear. Reiji turns hostility into rivalry. Even Koga's short appearance changes the scale of the story by suggesting that Rago's history is much larger than the Bureau has explained. The ingredients are familiar, and the pacing sometimes rushes through emotion or pauses for too much explanation. But Jiro's compassion gives the story a strong center, and Rago has enough personality and agency to feel like a character rather than a power source. My score for episodes 1 through 4 is an 8 out of 10. The cat distribution system delivered. The question now is, where will episodes 5 through 8 take us? What does Koga want with Rago? What is really being kept beneath that shrine? And can Jiro and Reiji survive being on the same team without another weaponized can of soda? If you enjoyed this recap, like the video and follow for more Black Torch reviews.